morning. This is Adina Hanna again. I think the last time we recorded, it was about how Adam was made a little higher than the animals with the neshama. This would build his life. It's a recorder that God puts in us, and everything we do and say is there. So this figures into God's plan. Now, God made things with a purpose, and of recent time, I have thought more in terms of what God really wanted for man and for earth. And it wasn't religion that he was seeking to have from man. Religion where man's looking, trying to find God and connect to him. He was looking to build a kingdom that was primarily government was the running force of the earth.
God is a ruler.
He's a ruler, but he was making Adam the ruler of the earth. So that very term speaks of government. And so I wanted to start talking about this and show how this is the focus clear through the Bible, but it gets distorted a bit because man is always doing the wrong thing to make it, and it doesn't come about because of that reason.
Right, it's a long process.
It's a process. So how do we know that God had that in mind when he made Adam?
Do we have something in the Bible that indicates this?
Yes, I think we do when it says
Where?
in Genesis 1:27, he made man in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Now, the image of God is that God, who we can't see, is everything that is seeable is under his rule.
Right.
He's the king of all of that.
Right.
So he made Adam in his image. So Adam, he says to him, be fertile, increase, fill the earth. So that means, fill the earth, that means make a lot of people like yourself.
Right.
And then rule over it.
And they have to be ruled, that's right. That's good.
But the ruling over was going to include more than just people. Have master over the earth, rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and the living things that creep on the earth. So how is Adam going to do this?
Yeah.
You have to have some wisdom in order to handle a job that big. I think we need to start with Adam.
That's a good place to start.
Adam was created with a piece of earth. Our body is a piece of this earth.
Right.
And God rules over all things, but he gave us this one little piece that we could rule over. He gave us a neshama that tells us what is best, a wisdom of how to do this. So the animal nature that we also inherited in this, getting this earth, has to be ruled over. We have to rule over our animal nature before we have the wisdom to know how to rule over other animals and then over things that are that are besides the animal kingdom, because the animal or the body must be fed.
Yeah.
Or it ceases to exist. So that includes growing things, the air we breathe. So all of this must be managed. But if we can't manage our own little piece of ground, we're not going to know how to manage anything else.
And of course, with animals, it's a little bit easier because God programmed them and they can be trained.
That's
but
right.
Man is
But man has to train himself. We have to. And the beautiful thing is, God had a relationship with Adam.
Yeah.
They walked together in the garden.
Right.
He could hear God speaking to him.
Right.
And there was no need for religion because he had it.
Well,
He had this relationship with
Yeah,
God.
because you're right, the relationship was already there. It was natural.
Right. And so there was no need for rules and regulations
Right.
about how I relate to this person.
Right.
He just knew him as Father.
If he had a question,
And-
he asked the Father, and the Father told him.
Right. And so that part was already there.
Mm-hmm.
He just needed to answer and find out things that he needed to know.
Exactly.
All right. But Hashem, or our Father, knew that in order for Adam, his first son, to develop,
Mm-hmm.
obedience of some sort has to be inserted into this, because we don't learn how to handle other people if we haven't come under someone and learned from them.
Everybody's under some kind of government.
We're all under some kind of
Rules.
situation where we have to bend our will or make choices between whether we want to go the way of wisdom or the way of what we'd like to make up in our minds.
Either wisdom or foolishness.
Yeah. And it's easy for man to be foolish when he doesn't know everything.
What does the proverb say? There's a way that seems right.
Unto man, and but the ways thereof are
And
death.
Mm-hmm.
So we see here that God gives Adam a job to do.
Right.
That's the first thing. And then he gives him a wife to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives him a day, a holy day, so that he can have contact with God more focused.
Yeah.
I mean, he has contact with God all the time, but this day they just sort of like, it's like getting together with your friends and having fun.
Yeah.
And so he's placed him in the garden, and he says, you can eat everything. Everything's good for you, Adam,
Mm-hmm.
except for one tree.
Yeah.
Now, why did God start with food for the first
I
negative
don't know.
commandment?
Yeah, why? That's a good question.
Because that's that's the connection the physical has with staying alive. And the physical staying alive gives the body a connection to heaven. So
there's something very important about food and our relationship.
yes, and so how what we eat, how we take care of our body is part of this subduing it. So Adam has to know what to do to feed his body. Now God says all the trees and everything you see is edible.
Right. He had a lot of choices he could eat
A
from.
lot of choices. I mean, this is freedom.
Think of the variety of foods that are in the world today. And they're all sort of there in a way, you know. Maybe
Yeah,
some may have
everything that
developed
we
since,
eat comes from the original
Right.
nature that God gave us.
I mean, beautiful.
So there was only one thing he wasn't supposed to eat.
So he didn't need that one thing. He had plenty of other things that he
That's right. That was the test. Now God tests us. He doesn't tempt us, but he tests us to see if we're going to make a choice that will build into our being the ability to take advice from somebody else.
Yeah.
Without this ability, we become a wild person.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't make the choice that God knows is best for us, we become a wild person.
Mm-hmm.
When we say a beast is wild, they're still not wild as far as God's concerned, because they live within the parameters that he built into them.
Yeah, I think that meant more of the domesticated ones were for milk or for
Right.
some kind of food, ordinary daily food and whatnot. The wild were kind of at a different location or whatever.
Well, there definitely was a separation between wild and
Well, yeah,
domesticated.
it seems like that. Yeah. But it's interesting that Adam wasn't really the one that was tested. It was Eve that was tested, and then Adam was tested by what Eve said, I guess, or what she did.
Well, that shows that the women were always in charge of the food and gave it to. In fact, a lot of marriage ceremonies are when the woman gives a food to the man.
The Bible was that way. Yeah.
So, but Adam and his wife Eve were one
Yeah,
person,
that's true. That's
and
true.
God called them man,
Right.
which means the word man stood for mankind.
Yeah.
Together they were mankind.
Right. Right.
And so the what she did and what he did was sort of together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So Adam didn't pass the test, but that doesn't mean God gave up on him. And it didn't mean that God no longer had a relationship with him. He was sent from the garden because the garden also is the place of the throne. And Adam didn't deserve the throne now. He was sent out of his home because he couldn't follow
There was
one rule.
There was a punishment.
Yeah, or
Kind of
discipline.
punishment.
We can call it punishment or discipline.
Discipline. Yeah.
And God says, now you're going to have to figure out how you're going to eat. Notice that the discipline matches the error that he made. So anyway,
How's that?
well, because he was going to have to work hard to get his bread
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
before he could just
Yeah.
pick any tree. He's outside the garden. We don't know what kind of trees, what the ground is like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to not choose what I have given you, then you figure it out.
Yeah.
That's basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that eventually he's going to get what he wants. God knows this.
Oh yeah.
Even though now we have a major detour
Yeah.
to setting up the earth under God
And the rule and the government.
and the rule and the government. And this is the basic thing, because when you have lots of people, they have to be organized in some manner so that it functions with harmony. Now we have to keep that word harmony in mind.
Okay.
Peace and harmony.
Right. Right.
So that will be one of the goals of this government, is everybody living in a harmonious way. Everyone knowing what they're gifted to do
Right.
and doing it.
Everyone has a place and a part.
They all have a place. And is it going to be all one nation? Is it going to be
It's going to
globalism?
be a world government.
A world government? Or is it going to be more than one nation?
Mm-hmm.
How is it organized? Okay. So that's probably enough for today, and we'll get.
We can leave that question with them. And how is this organized? How is it going to be? How's God going to bring this about?
Well, we're going to go into that. I think we'll go into that next time.
Okay.